We've done so many of these, and when we've done them before, we've really talked about products like new solutions that we had out there for people, very innovative things for people who might have some trauma, anxiety, want to lose weight. So today's is really special because we are going to talk about Behind the Rain, the secrets of the Holosync Solution Program. And as you know, or you may know, we will be celebrating 35 years in business in October. So that's kind of exciting. A lot of companies cannot say that. And the reason that we've been in business so long really is because of this program, because of this solution. When Bill founded this company just about 35 years ago, it all started with Awakening Prologue. So clearly, the people who are in AP now, you understand that, and everybody who's, gosh, on those deeper levels, right? Like, we would never have been here if it wasn't for Bill, testing this and keeping at it into all hours of the night. So thank you for saying congratulations. It is like, that's a big deal because we have more than 2.5 million people have used Awakening Prologues or the Holosync solution, right? That's huge. It's been used in at least 196 countries as of our last count. So those numbers could only be larger at this point. So we're really happy you're here. Joining us today, of course, everyone knows Mark Gilson, who was with Bill, gosh, back about 27 years ago, as the first team member of Centerpoint. So that's really exciting. And of course, we have David Bardis with us today, who is one of our incredible accelerated results coaches. And David, I know 15, is that correct? Is it 15 years?
We're close, getting there. We're at 13.
13 years. Okay, I'm going to remember 13, lucky 13. So this is really exciting. I can't wait for Mark to go over a few items today. And then the really fun part, I think, is we're going to open up the floor and we want to hear from you. We want to hear about your experiences as well as your challenges. Like everyone always thinks, oh, you have to say something great. And, we want to hear it all. Like we love hearing all the incredible stories. And sometimes there's setbacks and that's okay. But we want to hear it because that's what makes us better. So we need your help to make us better. So thank you for being here. And Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you.
That sounds great. Thank you, Mary Ellen. Going to do a little sound check. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So as Mary Ellen said, this is a little different than our normal coaching cast, right? But I think it's going to be really fun because today is really set aside for anybody in the Holosync Solution Program. As Mary Ellen said, whether you're in Awakening Prologue or you're in the deepest flowering levels, and it's for anybody who's thinking about joining the Holosync program. So we're about to celebrate our 35th anniversary, as Mary Ellen said. 35 years is incredible. And that's not just the anniversary of when the company started, but it's also when our late great founder, Bill Harris, first made his master meditation program, the Holosync Solution Program, available to the public. Back then, Centerpoint was really, I think, fair to say, more of an idea than a company, right? But in October 1989, Bill ran an ad to promote his brand new audio meditation program. And when the phone started to ring, he answered it and he answered all the questions and he took down the order and he shipped off a little package of cassette tapes and support literature. That was Awakening Prologue. Now, since then, as you know, we've released a lot of amazing suites. We've done courses, we've done some live events, some online gatherings like this one, but it all started with one thing, the Holosync Solution Program. That's our flagship program. It's the original recipe, so to speak, and it continues to be the best overall audio meditation program you're going to find anywhere. So if you're doing the Holosync Solution Program, I'm assuming the majority of you are, then congratulations, because a little like Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, you chose wisely. But the thing is, even though this is the most popular audio meditation program in the world, we get tons of questions. If you ask David, if you ask anybody on our amazing support and coaching team, we get all kinds of questions about how does it work? Why is it so powerful? Why is it so different? What is this neural driving thing you're always talking about? Is this based on any real science? And what is up with the rain and those crystal bowls, right? We get that one a lot. And these are all great questions with answers that might surprise you, that a lot of people just don't know. So I'm assuming that you're all here today because you want to find this out. You're going to learn something about this powerful program that you have committed to using to improve yourself. Doesn't matter to us how old you are, where your background is. We believe you're passionate about becoming a happier, healthier person, and our job is to help you do that. So today's about answering those questions. We're going to pull back the curtains a little bit, explore the program, and by the time you're done, you're going to know almost as much about Holosync, at least parts of it, and how and why it's the best audio meditation program out there as our coaches do. And one reason for that is because for the first time ever, some of what we're going to cover today is actually drawn directly from our in-house training program. Okay, so please do stick around until the end too, because I have a feeling, I know you're going to want to hear what Mary Ellen has to share with us today. So we're going to go behind the scenes, geek out about the technology a little bit, talk about brainwaves. We'll tell the origin story, but I do want to confess something up front, and that is this. The program we're about to talk about today is so deep and so layered. And when we first began planning this call, I quickly realized and talked with Mary Ellen, and I said, you know, there's this much I want to cover, and we have about this much time. So we're going to kind of move quickly here, but we're going to cover a lot. And who knows, you know, if you guys like this, if you guys find this fascinating, and I think you will, we could do another gathering like this. We could dig even deeper because there's so much to this. But for now, are you ready to dive in and immerse yourself? It's a little Holosync joke. I hope most of you get. Where do you begin? Yeah, exactly. Well, where do you begin with something like this? And, you know, I think the answer to that question is you should always begin at the beginning. So let's get a little background history. People often ask us, you know, what in the world motivated a guy like Bill Harris, our late founder, to create something like this? And to tell that whole story would take up all the time we have, but let's take a little bit of time on the history, because it's within the history of the Holosync Solution Program that so many of our other questions get answered. So let's start with this. Let's just say that in his early 30s, early on in his life, really, Bill developed a very strong interest in meditation. This wasn't just a passing curiosity. He wrote and spoke publicly about his battles with depression, anxiety, and even anger. And he told us how he tried, let's just say, a lot of things to try to improve himself. Some of them worked, but most didn't, at least not much. But meditation was really the first and only thing that Bill had found that provided him with real improvement, something that really made a difference in his life, something that had a ton of potential. But like I said, it wasn't just a hobby. Bill wanted tangible, real results that he hadn't found through other means. He didn't want to just do meditation. He wanted to understand meditation. And because he was a lifelong reader, you know, as Mary Ellen knows, and some of you out there knew Bill as well, he really had a scholar's mind. He was not afraid to, you know, spend all day reading a book if he thought there was an answer to a question he had in that book. So he read a ton about meditation, classical literature, as well as the latest scientific research. And he quickly figured out that, yes, meditation held immense potential for well-being, for improving one's life. He also discovered that most people, sad truth is, just didn't have the time, you know, to do 3, 4, 5 hours a day of meditation for 30, 40 years that was really required if you wanted to see the full potential of meditation. And he wanted those benefits. Okay, he didn't want to wait the rest of his life to experience them. Now, he wasn't interested in a shortcut. I feel like that's an important distinction. He was interested in accelerating the benefits of long-term deep meditation, but how? Well, sometime in the mid-1980s, Bill discovered something that would change his life and later the lives of so many others. He learned about a way to accelerate and boost the effectiveness of traditional meditation using sound, or what we call neuro-audio technology. Now, this technology, it was claimed, could actually get you into very, very deep states of meditation with no drugs, no other substances, nothing special, just sound. Now, the specific method of doing that is something many of you have heard before, the term binaural beat entrainment. We're going to talk about that. When we say binaural, we're talking about something involving both ears. Entrainment means the synchronization of 2 or more rhythms as they interact. And we'll get to that beat word in just a moment. And we're about to throw out a few more kind of slightly sciencey terms, but don't worry, we'll keep most of the math out of it. I'm not a math person myself. Now, the idea of using sound to alter consciousness isn't exactly new. In fact, you could look at many ancient and indigenous cultures in the world that use sound for precisely that purpose, to create altered states of consciousness. I mean, think ritualistic drumming, chanting, right? David is an expert there, dancing, vibration, rhythm. And I think this is fascinating, this power of rhythm, this idea of entrainment, this responsiveness to the power of a pulse or a beat. It is hardwired into our brains. And in fact, it's relatively well developed even from birth. Rhythm, when you think about it, it's how our bodies work. We've got circadian rhythms, we've got ultradian rhythms, we've got circulunar rhythms. Rhythm is how we organize our days. It's how seasons unfold. It's even how we learn. Think about how many of us learned our ABCs with that little alphabet song, which is in 4/4 time. You know, the predictable, memorable rhythm is the center for the information, you know, that carries that information into our brains. In this case, the letters of the alphabet. Rhythm, frequency, vibration have powerful effects and benefits we're still learning about. Even the famed Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And the specific kind of vibration phenomenon we're talking about here with binaural beat entrainment is called resonant entrainment. It's when two systems synchronize with one another through a resonating frequency. Now, when it comes to the origins of our understanding of how sound can alter the brain, most people are going to point to a paper that was published in Scientific American in 1973 by Dr. Gerald Oster of Mount Sinai Medical Center as kind of the starting point for this idea of binaural beat entrainment. I should mention, Oster doesn't really explain the actual entrainment process in his paper so much as the phenomenon of the beat frequencies themselves. This will become a little clearer as I keep going here. But what he did do was demonstrate the mechanism within the brain that allows for entrainment to occur. Oster's paper generated a lot of interest in what is known as the frequency following response. And people, once that paper came out, began to experiment with what he called auditory beats in the brain. It's part of the title of his paper. Now, to understand the ramifications of Oster's paper, let's take a quick look at, I think, probably our favorite subject around here, the brain. The brain can be thought of as a kind of bioelectrical organ made up of different systems or parts, and it's doing a lot, but one thing it's always doing is producing neuroelectrical signals or impulses. Now, these electrical impulses are relatively weak, you know, compared to something like the electricity that powers your television or the computer or your phone that you're watching this on, but they do fire our thoughts, our memories, and all the automatic things like the beating of our hearts that keep us going. These bioelectrical impulses fire throughout the brain all the time. And the rate or the speed at which they're firing can tell us a lot about the state that particular brain is in. But generally speaking, the faster they're firing, the more awake and alert we are. And as they slow down, we slow down. We become calmer. And when they're slow enough, we doze off and we fall asleep. Now, this is something we get a lot of questions about. And while some people are familiar with brainwaves, it's worth taking just a moment to cover this, as it kind of sets the table for really understanding why Holosync is so potent and what it actually does. Okay, so now, like other forms of waves, brainwaves are measured according to hertz or cycles per second. And neuroscientists have categorized these brainwaves into groups that you have probably heard of. And Stephen, have you got that chart that you created for us today, the brainwave chart you can put up for us? And I'll just keep going while he's bringing this up. There we go. Thank you. So, for example, if your brain's impulses are firing at a rate of between about 13 and 30 hertz, let's start here, because that's where we are right now. That's beta. Beta is a state of normal wakefulness, eyes wide open. It's attentiveness, it's alertness, it's wakefulness. It's where we spend most of our waking hours. If the impulses are a little slower, it means you're in a deeper state called alpha. That runs between about 8 and 13. Now, alpha, very interesting state, calm and relaxed, but not really sleepy. It's usually associated with a flow state or with being in the zone. It's considered to be a super learning state because alpha is ideal for boosting memory, both in terms of retention and recall. We're going to come back to that in just a minute. Now, as the brainwaves slow down even more, we enter theta from about 4 to 8 hertz. Deep relaxation, dreamy states of consciousness, deep meditation. This is where we enter more of a sleep-like state, where we disengage from the external world It's where the brain really begins to rejuvenate its energy, recharge itself. Sometimes it's associated with very vivid dreamlike experiences or even visionary experiences in some forms of meditation. And it's been associated with heightened levels of creative insight and inspiration. We slow it down even further. We get down into delta from about 0.1 to 4 hertz. This is the deepest brainwave state. We're talking deep sleep, true unconsciousness, very deep meditation. It's in delta where cellular repair begins to happen, where we get the most restful and restorative sleep. So delta is very important to our mental and physical health. Now, one quick thing here, these ranges, you'll see some variation in various textbooks and so forth, where you might see like alpha being 8 to 12 instead of 8 to 13, and that's fine. There's nothing particularly magical about whether we call 13 hertz an alpha or beta state, but there's another state you'll probably notice that I skipped over, and that is gamma. Its range is actually above even beta, and gamma is really an interesting state. And sometime I really want to do like a whole call on gamma, because it's just, there's so much research coming out about it, but I just want to summarize it real quickly. And that's why I kind of saved it to last. Gamma waves are generally said to be between 30 and 100 hertz. So it's quite high. And for that reason, for a long time, gamma waves were considered an anomalous brainwave state. And I say were considered because up until relatively recently, gamma waves were really only associated with states of high stress or tension, and kind of makes sense because they're so high. But beginning in about 2004, which is when a study was published on monks who were practicing a very specific form of compassion-based meditation called the metta bhavana, researchers began to realize that gamma is actually a remarkably powerful state. It's been associated since then with powerful insights, feelings of compassion, expanded awareness, clarity, and a lot more. When this study came out, Bill and I, we immediately sat down. We started testing and experimenting with gamma waves for weeks and weeks. I remember that. We listened to a lot of Holosync, a lot of gamma, but it resulted in the first gamma-based audio meditation soundtrack ever produced, what today we call our Gamma Compassion soundtrack. And by the way, that comes with every level. If you're on Awakening level 3 or beyond, you have a Gamma Compassion soundtrack. Now, since then, a lot of research has gone on with gamma waves, and that's demonstrated a tremendous range of benefits. I mean, we're talking improvements in cognition, problem-solving, memory, attention span. There's even been research to suggest that gamma can help stave off neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's. So you're going to hear a lot more about gamma in the news, in the neuroscience news, in the weeks and months to come. Okay, look, we could spend hours talking about brainwaves, but we got to get back to the binaural beats, right? How do they really work? Now that we've got a little background on brainwaves, we can find out. Now we know the brain's got these two cerebral hemispheres, left and right, and each hemisphere has its own hearing center. Your left hemisphere can process a sound independently of the right hemisphere. Those you brain experts will probably want me to say these hemispheres are cross-wired, right? Each controlling the opposite side of the body. So if we want to apply what Oster described, how do we do that? Well, let's just take a quick example. Let's just imagine for a minute, you got to study for a test, a big test. There's lots to read, lots to memorize. You got to get into a clear-minded state where you can easily maintain your focus, make sure your memory is going to grasp and retain all that information that you are studying. Now, beta, that normal wakeful state that we're in right now, probably a little too prone to distraction to make for an ideal learning state. Your attention span is wide, sure, but maybe a little too wide. Theta, less scattered, but too relaxed to really focus intently, and certainly not delta, that's just too deep and drowsy. But let's talk about alpha, the sweet spot. Alpha is great for studying because it's good at avoiding distractions and intrusive thoughts. In alpha, you can selectively focus, you're relaxed and in the zone, but you're not really sleepy. Plus, it's a state of high receptivity, which means the things that you're studying have a much better chance of anchoring in your mind and staying there. That's why alpha is so often called a super learning state. So we've got our target state, alpha. That's where we want to go. How do we get there? Have a couple beers? Some drugs, sedatives? No, how about sine waves? How about sound? So let's put down our beer and pick up our headphones instead. And we don't need Mozart or Bach. There's nothing fancy here. All we need are a couple of tones and a little tiny bit of math. So let's choose a tone for our right ear. Let's say 260 hertz for the right ear. And let's choose a slightly different tone for our left ear. How about 250 hertz? Now we got to use our headphones because we don't want the right ear hearing the tone meant for the left ear or vice versa. So we put our headphones on and we start listening to our two tones. And what happens? Well, not much at first, but if we keep listening, within a few minutes, our brainwave patterns begin to slow down. And eventually, we find ourselves in that alpha state. We end up focused, clear-headed, undistracted, and our study time has just been optimized to a significant extent. And Stephen, if you want to pull that slide down, you can. But how did this really work? How did those two tones, the 260 and the 250, get us into that alpha state? Well, this is the fascinating part about the way the brain processes sound that Oster was telling us about. When the left side hears one tone and the right side hears a slightly different tone, the brain does something really remarkable. It synthesizes those two tones and it creates a third tone based on the difference. The third tone is not audible, but to the brain, it's treated as though it is. It's sometimes called a phantom tone. In fact, you musicians out there, you ever hear of the Tartini tone, named after Giuseppe Tartini? He incorporated these phantom tones into his violin pieces, but Oster called it a beat, an auditory beat in the brain. So that beat comes from the difference. In this case, the 260 and the 250. What's the difference? It's 10 hertz, right? That's the beat frequency created within the brain, 10 hertz. And we just had the chart up, but remember when we said that the alpha brainwave state goes from about 8 to 13 hertz, so 10's kind of in the middle of that range, right? We have successfully created an alpha state in our brain quickly, efficiently, with no drugs, no sedatives, no magic. We've experienced Oster's frequency following response. Okay, now I grant you this is sort of a simplified version for the sake of an example, and to some it's kind of mainstream knowledge. But consider how remarkable this is, to change the way the brain works, to change your state of consciousness, not with mind-altering substances, but sound, pure sine waves. And this was not lost on the people experimenting and exploring this in the 1970s and 80s, I can tell you. Everybody was interested in meditation back then. I mean, at the time, though, all this sound stuff was brand new. I mean, that was a time when interest in altered states of consciousness and meditative experiences were really on the rise. And of course, our own Bill Harris was among those fascinated by all of this. This could be what he was after, a way to boost the benefits of meditation quite literally at the touch of a button. So he started to experiment with this technology. He joined with others who were, what you might call neurotech enthusiasts, you know, psychonauts or something, right? They're the very first brain hackers in some ways. And they would use this technology. They'd make their own cassette tapes using this technology, not just for alpha, but for all kinds of brainwave states. They sometimes listen for hours a day, which is not recommended, I should point out. Most of them were just interested in having an interesting momentary experience, you know. I mean, out-of-body experiences were big, thanks to folks like Robert Monroe. Lucid dreaming was big. Bill was interested in more than that. He enjoyed those experiences. They're very interesting. But he was wanting something more tangible and practical. He was a pragmatist. He wanted not just a brain trip or a momentary effect, right? So he wanted to see significant improvements in his everyday life. So he was documenting how he felt when he listened to this entrainment stimulus. He wanted to know not just how he felt in the moment, though. He wanted to see how it affected the rest of his day. So he's keeping track, keeping notes. He was making his own tapes using some noise generators that he borrowed from a local college in downtown Portland. For Bill, this technique, this form of brainwave entrainment, was a revelation. Most importantly, it was working, and not just for him, but for other people too. But he was seeing improvements in his focus, his concentration. He was seeing more peace of mind. Maybe most importantly, he was finally beginning to heal and recover from years of depression and anxiety, something he had almost given up on. But he discovered a little bit of a problem, or really kind of more of a limitation. He noticed that while he was getting all these great improvements, the improvements started to level off after a while. This upward arc of improving his mental and emotional health sort of reached a certain plateau, even though he was listening to the same audio sessions that had produced the original benefits. You know, he'd start listening, experience some changes, maybe go through a little discomfort as the system was adapting, but then would taper off. Why was that happening? Why did the growth stop? And others were sort of seeing the same thing, but they kind of decided it was a matter of finding that very special golden beat frequency, you know, that elusive and special and very precise brainwave pattern where if you just get into that, all the secrets of the universe would be revealed, or at least you'd be completely transformed, maybe even enlightened. But having read a lot of science in his life, Bill knew something about the basic principles of entrainment. that not too many people were paying attention to, and it all came down to the basic physics of waves. See, while the focus of most people developing and using this technology was on that specific beat frequency, Bill wondered what would happen if you changed not just the frequency, but the carriers of the two tones we use to get into our beat. Let's go back one more time. Remember our example of 260 and 250 hertz? For lack of a better term, let's just call them carrier tones. That's sort of the term we use for those. Well, let's talk about frequency and amplitude. Stephen, can you put up our wave? We have one more slide for you. This is going to be our waveform. I'm sure you've seen this before. Very common diagram. And you can see frequency means how many times per second this wave pattern repeats. So if you see 4 of these happening every second, well, then you've got a frequency of 4 hertz. But what about the other property? That's amplitude. That's the y-axis. It essentially equates to the amount of energy the wave has. And with sound, you can adjust both variables. You can adjust the x and the y. You can adjust the frequency and the amplitude. Now, most people were paying attention to just the frequency and paying very little attention to amplitude. So they were getting into very precise states of consciousness, 2 or 3 hertz for sleep. 15 hertz is great for jet lag, by the way. 7.83 hertz. Anybody know what that is? That's the Schumann resonance. That's the resonant frequency of the Earth itself. And this is all great. It matters what target state you're in, but the carriers also matter in a very different way. While the beat represents where you went, so to speak, the carrier could determine another very important factor, the potency of the signal being fed to the brain while you went there. Bill realized that by adjusting the carrier frequencies, you could control the potency of the beat frequency. That's standing phantom wave produced by the brain, in the brain. Lower carriers tended to be stronger. Why? Because lowering the carrier means higher wave amplitudes. That's more energy in the wave, more potency, more power. Now, I don't know how many physicists we have out there, but a physicist might say this: the energy in a wave is proportional to the square of frequency and the square of amplitude. So increasing the frequency means lower amplitude, and lowering it means higher amplitude. Don't worry about that. Simply put, lower carriers mean a stronger stimulus for the brain in this case. That's what Bill clued in on. He recognized that if you can control the target brainwave state, the beat, and the potency of the stimulus you're giving the brain, the carrier, you're not just getting into a deep meditative state. You are exercising the brain. You're pushing it to change and adapt to the stimulus. You are driving the nervous system. This is what we mean by neural driving. So let's get back one more time to our alpha example and see how this works. Remember the two tones, 260 and 250 hertz respectively, right and left, gives us our 10 hertz alpha. Okay, that's nice. But let's say we wanted to do more than just get into a nice focused alpha state. Let's say we also wanted to give our brains a little workout, a little challenge. If we use a lower carrier set, let's put the 260 and 250 aside, and instead let's use 230 hertz and let's say 240 hertz. We could even say 212 and 222. As long as the difference continues to be 10 hertz, we still get into that very same alpha state. But we did something different, right? We lowered the carriers. Now we've added energy to that alpha beat. We boosted the amplitude without cranking up the volume. And now we're giving the brain a novel stimulus. We've turned a weak alpha beat into a high potency version of that same beat. And what's the brain do? The brain does what brains are good at doing. It adapts and it grows. It feels that push from that high energy wave. Just like your muscles when you exercise, it gradually gets a little bit stronger, a little more resilient, a little better equipped to handle that stronger stimulus. So this information inspired Bill to design his own audio meditation program, one that didn't just focus on the beat, or what we sometimes call window or target frequencies, but on potency. Now, there's a certain amount of math and audio engineering that we won't get into today that has to be applied to this process for it to work properly. But this is the basic concept that allowed Bill to create what he called Holosync, a way of not only replicating deep meditative states, but of also pushing or driving the brain to grow and change in response to these progressive increases in potency. With each successive increase, a whole new set of core level changes and improvements would manifest. So that thing where he was plateauing out, he figured out a way to overcome it. Reach the next plateau, give the brain a stronger stimulus. Once it's adapted to that, give it yet another stronger stimulus. And if you've ever wondered why it's so important to move from level to level in the Holosync solution program, This is why every new level means your brain gets a stronger stimulus and you get a stronger potency. You want to keep that momentum going. You want to keep feeding that brain more stimulus, challenge it, give it time to respond and grow and improve, and then challenge it again. I tell people all the time, you have no idea what your brain is really capable of. I don't care if you're 20 or you're 95, your brain can improve, but only if you stimulate it, you challenge it. A Holosync, like nothing else out there I know of anyway, it is uniquely able to do this. I get excited about this, right? This is the core of why people do this program. This is why, if you're seeing improvements, I'm telling you exactly why that's happening. Holosync is uniquely capable of pushing your system to grow and adapt and change. And all you got to do is sit down and listen. And sometimes this is also why people who use Holosync can encounter a little resistance, right? A little upheaval. Systems, including your nervous system, they tend to like homeostasis, you know, that comfort zone. They like to find a nice, comfortable spot and just kind of camp out there, but that's not growth, is it? That's stasis. And look, if you're totally happy in your life and everything's going precisely as planned, just how you always wanted it to go, right? And you cannot handle one more ounce of happiness or peace, I suppose Holosync's not for you. And that's another question people ask, you know, what is this overwhelm that you talk about? Well, in a nutshell, overwhelm is just our subjective experience of our brains feeling the push from this neural driving effect. It's no different than somebody who hasn't exercised much and, you know, they join the gym like right after like January 1st or something. They go and they work out, they want to get stronger, have more energy. But at first, what do they get? Stronger, more energy? No. They get sore, stiff, achy muscles and fatigue. And so what do we say? We say, well, this is stupid. Let's not do this anymore. Let's quit. No, we don't say that. We say good, because that tells me I'm giving my body the stimulus it needs to grow. My body's being asked to do more. And if I give it some time, I should find that my workouts get easier. Why? Because my body's changing. My body is adapting. And in a moment, we're going to discuss just why that happens, because it turns out there's a really fascinating scientific basis for this. But as I said, by the late 1980s, Bill was using his own form of neuroaudio technology that we know today as Holosync, and soon he would finish designing his audio meditation program and begin offering it to the public. But the story is not quite complete, because Bill had Holosync. He found a way to make the basic process of binaural beat entrainment a lot more powerful, to accelerate the benefits of meditation. Most people would have stopped there because mission accomplished, right? But not Bill, because what he needed was a scientifically sound model to explain all this. And this is where we really begin to see why Holosync is so unique, and why so many people who tried other methods are so blown away by how well this works. Eventually what happened is that Bill found the model that he was looking for in the work of Belgian chemist and Nobel Prize winner Ilya Prigogine. Prigogine really should be more of a household name. I mean, he worked with what are called dissipative structures and complex systems, and those terms kind of throw people off. These are areas of study related to thermodynamics and how systems organize and respond to entropy. And entropy is another word that gets very confused, but just think of entropy as randomized energy within certain systems. I'm sure you've heard of chaos theory, right? That's an example of the kinds of things that Prigogine's work has influenced over years. In fact, here's the book right here in case you want to read it, Order Out of Chaos. It's fascinating. Okay. Now, we can't do justice to Prigogine's complete body of work, and far be it from me to try, but we can focus on one aspect of his work that forms the foundation for this idea of neural driving and how it changes the way the brain works. So I mentioned Prigogine works with systems. And when we say systems, we're talking about all kinds of systems. If you could see the world through the eyes of Ilya Prigogine, what you would see are nothing but systems. The universe, everything is made up of systems. We know about like the circulatory system and the bodies of living things. The body itself is a system. A car engine is a system. You could say that a city or a town is a system. A company is a system. Weather events like thunderstorms and hurricanes are systems. The earth is a system, the solar system, everywhere you look, right? Systems and more systems. But Prigogine said, okay, you can really break them all down to two basic types of systems, open and closed. What's the difference? Well, closed systems are things in the universe that don't actively exchange energy with their surroundings. So, you know, think a book, a chair, a stone. For simplicity, you could think of most non-living things as closed systems, although there's a few exceptions. Open systems, though, well, that's where things get a little more interesting because they have two important characteristics. First, unlike closed systems, open systems do exchange energy with their environment. They take energy in and they flush energy out. And perhaps most importantly, this energy, when properly organized by an open system, is what causes that system to grow, or what Prigogine said, reorganize. All right, quick example to clarify this. So I know we're getting a little sciencey here. Let's just imagine that we grab a chair, like an ordinary office chair, like I'm sitting in, and we drag it outside, and we set it right next to a tree, a living tree. And then we wait. Well, what have we got? We got two systems side by side, one open, the tree, and one closed, the chair. Over time, the chair and the tree are exposed to lots of stuff, right? The rain, if you're in Oregon, lots of rain. The wind, maybe some snow, hot summer sun. You can think of all that as the entropy that these things are exposed to. Now, if we come back later and we check on our chair and our tree, like say a year's gone by, what do you think we would see? And we might see that our tree, the open system, is doing great. Despite being exposed to all the elements, all the rain, the sun, it's actually grown another few inches and its roots are strong, its branches look pretty healthy. But what about the chair? Well, it's not doing so good. The rain and wind have taken their toll. The upholstery's peeling off. There's mold growing on the cushions. It's not going to be in good shape, right? The chair can't do much about that because it's a closed system. Unlike our tree, all that rain and wind does not help our chair grow. It just wears our poor chair down. Eventually, if we leave that chair out there long enough and nobody comes along to repair it, it's just going to fall to pieces completely, right? But if you give an open system enough stimulus, even randomized kind of chaos, entropy, that system can take the stimulus and use it to reorganize itself into a new system. It's like how our bodies take in food and convert it to nutrition and energy for growth. If you don't give an open system enough stimulus, it fails to grow. In fact, it can die too much and it can collapse. So you want to give it enough to bring that system to what Ilya Prigogine called a bifurcation point. Now, what's that? It's just the point at which the system, as it's currently structured, has to grow or become stronger and larger in order to handle the stimulus it's exposed to. Prigogine used a very poetic phrase for this. He said, once you take that system and it reaches its limits, its threshold, its bifurcation point, it has to change in order to cope with that. And what it does is it escapes to a higher order. It splits off from its old way of being, its old structure, and it becomes a new structure. It becomes something new, something bigger, something stronger, something better in some way. That, says Prigogine, is how open systems grow and survive, whether we're talking about trees, birds, mushrooms, or people, or brains. Open systems need to be pushed to a bifurcation point, or what Bill eventually would just call a threshold, right, before they can grow. Another way of saying it, you got to reach your limits before you can exceed them. Some video games, you play to gain experience with it, which then allows you to do what? Level up. The point at which that happens is your current threshold, your bifurcation point. So anyway, Bill adopted all these principles of change and growth as a model for how the brain was changing, how he was changing as he was using Holosync. He realized those powerful carriers were supplying the stimulus necessary to push his nervous system to a bifurcation point, that all-important point when growth and change begin to happen. The brain is an open system. It takes in entropy, a little bit of randomness, a little bit of novel stimulus, and it does its favorite activity. It tries to organize it. If you give it more than it's used to handling, it does the same thing the body does. It gets a little stronger in order to organize or handle the potency of the stimulus you're giving it. Does this make sense? This is how brains grow and develop. This is what Prigogine won the Nobel Prize for. This is the model on which neural driving is based. And just like with exercise, you're not just getting stronger by working out, you're also flushing out excess toxins, excess weight, the baggage. So that's the beautiful thing about Holosync. You're not really burning calories, but you are burning off old unresolved mental and emotional stuff, the trauma, the old emotional wounds, the old habits that aren't serving you. It's not just gaining improvements, but it's flushing out the stuff that has been holding us back. And this is why Holosync is so well known for helping people release years of old stuff from the past that's often very resistant to conventional forms of therapy and so forth. Okay, it's taken a while to cover all this, and we're going to get to another couple questions real quickly before we move over to Mary Ellen's announcement. But I hope this gives a little perspective. Okay, as I said, the whole history of this would take a while. Thresholds of the Mind, Bill's first book, he goes into this in more detail, but I wanted to provide some context so you understood that this wasn't just something that was slapped together. There were some blood, sweat, and tears that went into creating this program. And there's a reason why it works as well as it does. So why don't we shift gears, though? Let's say goodbye to Mr. Prigogine. You guys ready for that? Put the history aside. I know I can go on about the history, but let's talk about another question. And this is one we get a lot, and I promised we'd get to it today. So I definitely want to talk about it. And that is, what in the world is with the rain and the crystal bowls? Now, if you're in Awakening Prologue, or if you're in any of the deeper levels, oh, folks, you are very familiar with these two sounds, right? Your daily listening session, whether you're doing Awakening Prologue or all the way up into Flowering, means you're listening to two main soundtracks, the dive and immersion, in succession, ideally. The dive has the sound of rainfall and Tibetan crystal bowls. Sometimes those are called singing bowls or prayer bowls. And I wish I had one around here to show you, but I don't right now. But I know a lot of people assume that those are sort of like bells or chimes, but they're actually a set of 3 different sized crystal bowls that are being struck and then rolled with a soft mallet to create those ringing harmonic tones that they're so well known for. The rain is, well, rain. Don't get me started on rain. It's so hard to find a great rain track for these kinds of things, but I think we did. So why these sounds? Well, I mean, why rain and crystal bowls? Why not music or something? Or why not Holosync by itself? And I don't think we've ever talked about this in a group like this before, but there are some reasons for this rain and these crystal bowls. They serve specific purposes. Let's quickly talk about the rain. A never-ending rain, right? Now, the rain soundtrack you hear in Awakening Prologue, I want to mention, is a little different than the one that's used on the deeper levels, because on those levels, you get the virtual audio, that multi-layered 3D audio effect that adds a certain spatial depth to the rainfall. But the rain itself is really a form of natural white or pink noise. You've heard those terms, I think, right? Some like to call natural sounds like rain and ocean waves green noise, but in terms of the frequency spectrum, most rainfall is considered white or pink noise. Well, white or pink noise has been known to induce states of very deep relaxation in listeners, which makes sense, right? Because people often find the sounds of nature relaxing. I know I do. I love water sounds. Plus, this form of sound is ideal for masking outside noises that could otherwise distract you from listening. That's what most noise canceling effects are based on, by the way, a very, very quiet and subtle white noise effect. But it also serves as an ideal masking sound for Holosync itself. Now, why do you want to mask Holosync? Well, early on, I used to have this question too when I first got into this field, but the people who are developing this kind of technology, people like Bill, noticed that the sound used in binaural beat entrainment worked better when it was masked. In fact, even in Oster's paper, he mentions this fact. It turns out it has to do with a specific and kind of fascinating phenomenon called stochastic resonance. Well, what in the world is stochastic resonance? It's actually kind of a strange phenomenon. Stochastic resonance is the brain's ability to perceive a weak or quiet signal. It gets enhanced when it is in the presence of other noise, certain kinds of noise, in fact, and you guessed it, pink or white noise. So this is a case where rather than making it harder to hear something, a homogeneous field of sound like rain, pink noise, actually makes it easier for the brain to detect those subtle tones of Holosync. Here's an example. Imagine for a minute that you and I are standing in some city like Las Vegas, right on the strip or something, right? All the lights and the colors, and I say, hey, look at that blue thing over there. And it might take you a minute to spot the blue thing that I'm pointing to, because your brain's got to sort out all the other colors and, you know, distractions, all that other visual noise in order to see the blue thing I'm pointing at, right? But now imagine that we're standing in a big, massive room. And in that room is completely white. No other colors except for one object that's blue. I mean, it'd be a lot easier to spot that blue thing, right? There's no other colors competing with it, and you can easily, quickly pick it out. That's kind of how stochastic resonance works, and it's why Holosync is more effective when masked by rain, ocean, certain forms of music that are not too dynamic or syncopated. So anyway, using rainfall on the main program soundtracks basically makes it easier for the brain to pick out the signal when it's set against that field of sound, and therefore it improves the brain's ability to fall into lockstep with Holosync. Now, another quick related question around this is, does that mean music won't work with Holosync? That's not true at all. It works great depending on the music. I love using certain kinds of music when we design our suites, for example. It works with certain frequency profiles, certain drone effects, but we have to be very selective about the kind of music that we use for suites, because a lot of music is just too dynamic or too dissonant. Some music might come with a rhythm that can compete with the Holosync. So when we do music, we use it very, very carefully. But for purposes of the Holosync solution program, remember, this is what sets us apart from everything else, those low carrier frequencies. And the dive in particular, it is such a steep drop to delta. We are asking a lot of the brain. That's why we suggest you do 2 weeks of the dive by itself with every new level, to get the brain accustomed and acclimated to taking that very rapid drop into that very deep state of delta very quickly while handling those heavy duty low carrier frequencies. So rainfall is really ideally suited for the dive and immersion. What about the crystal bowls on the dive? Oh, the beautiful bowls. Resonating objects like bowls and chimes, even plates in meditation, have been used for centuries. Even today, many believe that sound bathing with these kinds of bowls can have a positive and healing effect on one's physiology. They've been shown to ease anxiety, help manage stress. Some believe that frequencies produced specifically by these kind of crystal bowls can activate or heal our energy centers, our chakras. In one 2016 study, they found that meditating with crystal bowls enhanced the effects of deep relaxation. Some proponents believe that the resonating effects of the bowls can lower your blood pressure, soothe the limbic system. We've talked about that about a dozen times, haven't we? These bowls put off very complex series of resonating harmonic tones that sort of phase in and out of dissonance. And there's probably a ton of holistic benefits to listening to these bowls, but they serve another purpose in the Holosync solution program. Specifically, they serve as a focal point for the conscious mind. Okay, so I'll make this last point. See, the conscious mind, I wonder how many people started using this program because they had trouble with conventional meditation. I bet there's, David, we need something to occupy the conscious mind's attention. One of the biggest challenges of meditation is quieting the mind, right? And the sounds of the bowls give that mind something to kind of chew on, while Holosync is in training the brain and drawing it down to those deep states. The bowls are that attention anchor, sort of a pacifier for the busy mind as you're going down, 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 down into delta. Okay, does that make sense? It's a very effective anchor for your conscious mind. It's a meditation aid. Those bowls have been used for centuries in the same way, and we use them just for the same purpose, really, in the Holosync solution program. So that's why rain and crystal bowls are used on the dive. Sometimes people have follow-up questions. Why aren't there bowls on immersion? Remember, dive is perfectly named. It is a deep, fast, steep drop from beta, where we are now, all the way down to delta. If you're wondering specifically, 2.5 hertz, 2.5 cycles per second. And you get there in about 21 minutes. It's a demanding process, at least until you get used to it. Immersion, though, is different. It's what we call a steady hold track, meaning it doesn't go up, doesn't go down. When dive's done, immersion grabs the ball and just runs. It just stays where it was dropped off basically by the dive. But it asks the brain to do another very challenging thing, and that is to stay in that deep state for another 30 minutes. But if the dive's done its job, gotten your brain down into that deep state, what we want by the time immersion takes over is very little in the way of excess distractions, right? Because the conscious mind is kind of anesthetized, sort of relaxed, chilled out. It doesn't need the crystal bowls to focus on anymore. It just needs a non-variable listening experience where nothing really changes. Time is no longer really perceptible. How often do you get in that state, where you lose track of time? And where those low carrier frequencies can really do their job. So in immersion, all you need is that beautiful field of natural pink noise, that gentle rainfall for the second half of your session, assuming you're listening for the recommended hour a day. These masking sounds are another reason why your dive and immersion tracks are so powerful. So now you know why we use the rainfall and the crystal bowls. And you know what, Mary Ellen? I've got like 6 more things, so we're going to be here for 4 more hours. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Maybe we can do a follow-up call. If you guys find this interesting, I know there's stuff that there's probably questions out there that I haven't even come close to touching on, but I hope you found some of this history, some of the behind the scenes stuff interesting. But more than that, I hope you find yourself motivated to keep working with these soundtracks. I don't care if you're in Awakening Prologue or Purification 2 or 3 or Flowering 2. I hope that by having a little background on why this program is so remarkable, why it's helped hundreds of thousands, millions of people over the past 35 years. If you are one of those people that put your dive and immersion on the shelf for a while, I get it. I've done that too. Go pick it up. Start listening. Move on in the program. The whole reason this program was designed was not just so you could sit around listening to the same thing for the rest of your life. It's so that you can have an opportunity, an avenue to really improve your brain function. Again, I don't care how old you are. I don't care what you're dealing with right now in terms of your personal challenges. I mean, I care. But I'm telling you, this is the thing to do. This is the daily practice to do to improve your resilience, to improve your ability to focus and concentrate, to help you be more resilient, to help you resist the effects of memory loss as we get older, even neurodegenerative problems as we get older. So please do it. Our team is here. We've got all the answers to any questions that we didn't get to today. And at this point, I think it's about time to hand this back over to Mary Ellen, because you have something to announce. And I think we've never done this in 35 years. Am I right?
Okay, so Mark, that was wonderful. And what everyone is saying in chat is, yes, they want a follow-up call, and maybe we'll just do a follow-up Q&A. The other thing is, next time we can say, hey, block out 90 minutes, right? So, and just in the chat, like Mark can't stop his presentation to answer the questions, but the thing about the Holosync solution is that it comes with coaching. If you are a member of AP or NEDL, you get free unlimited coaches. We have David and Aaron and Benjamin waiting for you to call, email, however you would prefer to speak to them. And so those questions can be about your experience. It can be about the technology. It can be about anything you want. So that is something that you're not going to find with any other program. And the only place you're ever going to find this technology is here in the Holosync Solution Program. So and there are such good questions in here that I want to keep going, but I know people are pressed. So what I'm going to do is if you would bring up those slides, Stephen, I'm going to give you something that we have never, ever, ever done before. And that is a ridiculous discount on either your next level or on Awakening Prologue. So if you are not in the program at all, you need to be, because you're never going to see this price again. So you can get Awakening Prologue for $79. You need to go to myholosync.com/awake and use the code, because it's all code driven, everybody, Secret Rain AP. Okay, it's right here on the screen. Please snap it. You can take a screenshot. And if you are in the deeper levels, your next level, you are going to get $100 off. So that's, again, another crazy, crazy offering. Somebody says, I was wondering if the extra money for the coaching. Wow, that's no, it comes with your program, the coaching. So for your deeper level, go to myholosync.com/deeper, but you will use a different code. You will use Secret Rain DL. So please make sure you're writing this down or snapping a pic, because we've never done this. And
No, I mean, Mary Ellen, $107, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been here 27 years, guys. I know this sounds a little salesy. We've never offered deeper levels for this for $107.
No.
And we didn't get a chance to talk about affirmations. I see all kinds of questions in here. The coaching, if you're in this program, like Mary Ellen said, you already got it. And that's not just the coaching. If there's questions we didn't get to today that are kind of urgent in your mind, give our coaches a call. These guys are here all day long to help you with anything that comes up, especially related to this program. And they have as much expertise about this really as I do. So do not hesitate to take advantage of not just the deeper levels, which we've just spent all this time talking about, and why they're so powerful, why they're so life-changing, why they were built the way they were built. But our coaches, the
Yeah.
human, support factor, the truly human resource. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to throw that out there.
No, Mark, no, right? Like Mark has been here for 27 years. He's never seen these prices. We've never done this before. And we're doing this because it's been 35 years and we want, and so much is going on in the world, right? I mean, so many things are happening. Our children are stressed. People have all gone through a very traumatic experience in the last few years. Everybody has gone through a traumatic experience if you've been, since 2020. So I think there's never been a better time to do this. And also, like I said, it's kind of our gift to you. And I do, of course, I need to say something about our ICLM members, which are our Inner Circle Lifetime members. Those are folks who already bought the program. So basically what we're doing, guys, is we are going to have a special board meeting just for ICLM people. We're going to do that in the next couple months. You'll get an invitation if you're ICLM, and we're going to have something pretty special for you there. But you have to be on that call. So if you're ICLM, look out for those emails that say ICLM members only. Okay, so if you're wondering, everyone, ICLM is something that when people just buy the entire program, they don't rush through the program. They still do it properly so that it's effective for them, but they bought it all at once, and the levels are released as they are done with the previous.
Yeah, they prepay, they get an amazing discount. The ICLM means our Inner Circle Lifetime member. I think I got kicked off the call from it, so maybe you said that already, Mary Ellen, sorry, but yeah, Inner Circle Lifetime member. These are our VIP folks, people like Ted, other people, Inner Circle Lifetime members. It's the way to go. Once you know you're going to do this whole program, the Inner Circle is the way to go. But I see questions about the structure of the program. Hey, if we do another one of these, we'll get to that, but and I promise I'll cover a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing in chat. I'm taking notes about that.
Yeah, we'll print that. Let's get this chat printed before, Stephen, so that we have record of it. And we'll put these questions on an agenda, and we'll do that. Mark will just kind of go over a couple little things, and then we'll go right into questions. So, right. Oh, good. So I see Dawn, Ted, a lot of folks who are ICLM. Great. But right now, I feel like I only saw one person who wasn't in the program. So I'm assuming there's more, because there was a boatload of people. So if you have never tried Awakening Prologue, you will never get a better price. Okay. So go to myholosync.com/awake. And you must use the code Secret Rain AP. And that code is only going to be available through the weekend. Okay. So you got to do it. And then of course, for $100 off your next level, whatever level you're going on to, go to myholosync.com/deeper, the code Secret Rain DL. Now, the other caveat is we're only going to do this for the first 250 orders. And gosh, we've had near over 300 people on this call today. So you've got to be, and this is going to go out. So like, if you think, oh, I'll do it over the weekend. Well, this is going to go out tomorrow to our entire community. Right. So if everybody on the call did it today, no one else would get that special price over the weekend. So please don't wait, because like I said, this is going out to everybody tomorrow, and we can only do it for the first 250 orders. Okay. So please, if you want it, do it now. If it's not for you, that's okay. But there is not a better program. If something isn't the way you want it in your life right now, there's just not a better program.
Yeah, I mean, and this was based on so many of the things I see, and I don't pick on other people in the industry who are trying to do these, meditation programs and stuff like that, but very few of them were constructed with such forethought, with such planning, with the kind of testing that Bill put himself through and that his sort of other beta testers did. This is not something that was accidentally thrown up and then, packaged with a pretty meditative picture on the cover. Everything in this program was designed with a purpose in mind to enhance your focus, your concentration, to help you heal. And like I said before, we don't care what your challenges might be. We assume you're here because you're passionate about personal development, you're serious about becoming a happier, healthier human being. If the world's going to get better, it's going to get better because of people like us who want to be happier and healthier human beings. And there is no other program that I'm aware of, or I'd be advertising it and talking about that one instead, than the Holosync Solution Program for helping you do it. Pure and simple.
No, there is nothing. And for those of you who don't know, and maybe have children that are going through anxiety now because of what's happened over the years, we have an incredible program that's called the Magical Wooded Path. And just because Holosync is so strong, and it's made specifically for kids from like 5 to 12 mark, right? 13.
Yeah, roughly. I mean, it's for any kid who wants to learn the benefits of mindfulness and use Holosync along the way. Yeah.
So I just want to throw that out there because I know a lot of parents and grandparents are have kids and grandkids that have anxiety more so than ever right now, like ever. So I don't want you to put your headphones with Holosync on them, right? We do have an amazing program that is made specifically for kids. This is a very potent program. So please keep it. So again, I'm going to give it to you one more time, and we keep getting it works.
Doug, Ted, everybody, man, it's so good to see you guys. It's so nice to have people here, as a part of the community. I'll tell you, I say it every time, but it does feel like family to me.
It really does. So please, for Awakening Prologue, for the very first introductory level of the program, which is Awakening Prologue, we call AP, is go to myholosync.com/awake, use the secret code, the code secret rain AP. It is a secret code because no one else is going to have it. And then if you're if you're ready to go on, if you're done with AP, this is the best time you could possibly get a DL. If you're just done with your, and even if you're almost done, you might want to grab that DL now, because again, these prices will not last. myholosync.com/deeper, and the code is secret rain DL.
Yeah. And there's so many questions that are coming up, you guys. I totally recognize that. Remember, reach out to us. Before we leave, stay tuned for the last slide. I think it'll have our contact information. David, we didn't get a chance to hear from him much today, but he is a longtime coach. He's an expert in the program, just like I am. So he can answer any questions. You can call him, you can email him right after the call if you want to, and he will be sure to take care of you as soon as he's able. But yes, the other programs, this works in conjunction with the suites. The Holosync Solution Program, as Mary Ellen said, we're talking heavy duty neural driving. I hope that if you listen to my whole talk today, I kind of established that potency is the key word here, right? Neural driving. It's not for children, but it is causing that system to grow. This is how our brains grew when we were developing as children, right? And then we reach about 16, 18, 20 years old, and all that begins to taper off. Holosync is a way to reignite that developmental process, that process of giving the brain some new stimulus that's brand new, novel stimulus that it needs to respond to in order to grow and reach levels of development that a lot of people never experience in their lives. This is the way to do it.
Yeah, and I've seen this comment a couple times in the chat with people saying, finally a way that you can share what Holosync is with your family and friends, because it's hard to explain. I mean, Mark, this is Mark's blood, right? This isn't his DNA. But it takes a while because it is proprietary technology, right? No one else has it. So it's not, easy for anyone besides, the folks here at Centerpoint to explain, besides people saying it works, it works, it works. So this could be when you get the replay, if you want to pass it along to a loved one, now is the time, as again, that Awakening Prologue price won't be there after the weekend. So please take advantage of it. I really hope you do. Again, we just want more and more people to have the life they deserve. So,
Definitely.
oh, that's wonderful that somebody, so people are accepting this offer. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. So, and again, your support is there for you, right? Here's the number on the screen, 503-672-7117. Of course, you can email support@centerpoint.com. Please, this is the, if you haven't snapped or taken a screenshot, this is the slide to do it, as it has the URLs, the secret codes, and the info for support. David, would you like to come on and say hi to all your fans who probably wanted to hear from you? I'm so sorry.
Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh. So happy that Mark went over this. There's so much more that we could cover, and it looks like we might do that in the future. But this was built with such an amazing mind in Bill when he put this all together. And it's an honor to keep going and keep this process available for everybody.
Great. Thank you,
Yep.
David. Mark, any final words?
No, I just want to tip the cap to Frank. I saw he's just getting his flowering level 4. If I read that right, it kind of popped up and disappeared. Congratulations, Frank. That means you're almost a graduate of the entire program. That is quite an accomplishment. And I'm just so happy. If you have any questions, we're happy to help you with that, as we keep saying. And do your affirmations. If you're in Awakening Prologue, the deeper levels, as other people in chat can tell you, that's a whole new world. And one of the things that makes it different is you get to do your own custom set of affirmations recorded in a proprietary technology. I really wanted to talk about that today. We just didn't have time. The affirmations are an incredible way of boosting the effectiveness of this. So be sure and jump into Awakening Level 1. Be sure to do those affirmations. They definitely make a difference. You will definitely get results from that. If you have questions about that, hey, give me a call, send me an email. We'll talk about it.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and we will follow up. Thank you. Bye-bye now.